Hello, my name is Sylvia, a marketing representative of Impact Hub Properties, a reputable real estate agency from Lagos State, Nigeria. Today I will be educating you on some common terms used when purchasing properties. This video will help you to not lose your properties after it has been purchased and also help you know what documents to acquire while purchasing a property in Nigeria. Imagine getting a property with no prior knowledge of the required documents and titles. Now this is something you don't want to miss out on. A lot of people have made terrible investment mistakes because they tend to overlook these documents and titles or probably leave them in the hands of their realtors. A good knowledge of these documents and titles is as crucial as the property itself. So we have deemed it necessary to inform and educate our esteemed clients and prospects on these issues. First of all, what are land titles and documents? You find out that oftentimes, a lot of people confuse the two terms, titles and documents. There is, however, a difference between the two. While one shows ownership, the other are papers received from property transactions. So first we look at land titles and then land documents. Land titles. These are documents that indicate the owner of a particular property, and they are highlighted and discussed as follow. Certificate of occupancy. This is a title that shows who the owner of a property or land is. Here in Nigeria, the ownership is vested with the governor of the state. A certificate of occupancy, CofO, is officially issued to the applicant valid for 99 years by the state governors in Nigeria. A particular land can only have one CofO for a period of 99 years after that. It is being renewed. In the case of a new owner, there are several other documents that will show that that property is being transferred if the CofO has not lasted up to 99 years. All lands belong to the government. According to Coach Spark Ovajay, there are two kinds of CofO in Lagos. It could either be a global CofO, which is usually issued to a community, while the normal CofO is either individual or a body. There are other types of CofO. It could be residential CofO, industrial CofO, or commercial CofO, depending on what the applicant wants to use the land for. Governor's consent. Governor's consent is a consent obtained from the governor of a state on a land transaction, without which will be deemed illegal in the eyes of the government and the law. A governor's consent can only be processed on a land with either Gazette or an existing certificate of occupancy, CofO. If an owner of land with CofO decides to sell his land, the only document that can give the new buyer or every other subsequent buyer the right of occupancy or ownership is the governor's consent. The powers of the governor to consent to such transactions can be found in Section 22 of the Land Use Act of 1978, which states thus: "It shall not be lawful for the holder of a statutory right of occupancy granted by the governor to alienate his right of occupancy or any part thereof by assignment, mortgage, transfer of possession, sublease, or otherwise howsoever without the consent of the governor first and obtained." This simply means therefore that even when a buyer has secured a land with a certificate of occupancy, he shouldn't stop there. He needs to begin the process of obtaining a governor's consent to make that purchase legal in the eyes of the government and be rest assured his land is safe. It should be noted that every subsequent transaction on the land cannot be perfected until the governor's consent is gotten. Excision. An excised land can be said to be the remainder of a government-owned land. Lands that have been mapped out for use by the government do not have excision, so you should ensure you are not trespassing on a government land. There are two types of excision and excision in view. It is not advisable to go for lands with excision in view because if the government does not grant that excision on time and even decide to revert the excision, whoever buys that land will eventually lose that land. Gazette. This is a kind of magazine or publication released by the governor to the public stating the lands and their owners. Specifically, a Gazette is an official record book where all special government details are spelt out, detailed, and recorded. A Gazette will show the communities or villages that have been granted excision and the number of acres or hectares of land that the government has given to them. It is within those excised acres or hectares that the traditional family is entitled to sell its lands to the public and not anything outside those hectares of land given or excised to them. Survey. This is also known as survey plan or registered survey. It can also be referred to as a map. The survey shows in entirety the owners of lands. For instance, it shows that this expanse of land is owned by Impact Hub, this expanse of land is owned by Mr. Hay or B. It shows you the entirety of everything. The layout in that survey shows you your specific plot and house number. For instance, Block B belongs to Sarah. Family receipt. Before the CofO came in, the family receipt was used to show or indicate land ownership. This was used in the early Nigeria. You can carry out a survey on a particular land with a family receipt. Deed of assignment. Most people have the title documents to their cars intact and in safe places, but fail to ask for the deed of assignment to their properties, which is several times more valuable than cars. The deed of assignment is a title as well as a document. Deed of assignment is one of the transactional documents drawn up by a real estate attorney between the current title holder of a particular property and the new buyer. In real estate transactions, a deed of assignment is a legal document that transfers the ownership of that property to the person to whom it is assigned, the assignee. When ownership is transferred, the deed of assignment shows the new legal owner of the property. The deed contains very pertinent information for a real estate transaction. It spells out the date when the ownership of the property transfers from one owner to the other. The deed also gives a specific description of the property that is included in the transfer of ownership. It is very compulsory and mandatory for a deed of assignment document to be recorded at the appropriate land registry to show legal evidence as to the exchange of ownership in any land or landed property transaction in order to make the general public and government aware of such exchange or transaction. It shows the completion of a transaction. It is the final document and title. It says I have given this person the power to do as he or she wishes with this property. Without the deed of assignment, it is assumed that both parties did not complete the transaction. Now that we listed the types of land titles, let's go to the next one. Types of land documents. First is purchase receipt. This is usually given to authenticate purchase. Ensure you collect the purchase receipt from the seller and ensure it has the signature of the seller. It should be documented. Second type of land document is contract of sale. It is a document that reveals the plan of both parties to start a transaction. It is the foundation. It shows the interest of both parties to go into a transaction. Then we have the provisional offer letter. It shows everything that is expected from both parties. It states what the purchaser is supposed to accomplish and other charges he or she will pay. It states the deadline for payment. The reason for the offer letter is simple. It is to show that each party understands the whole thing. Both parties come to an agreement and sign on the offer letter. Note, this is usually given when you purchase from a real estate firm. Provisional allocation letter. It gives specific details about the land/property being sold. You will be given full description about the land or the property being sold. Allocation is usually specific. E.g. Block A, Flat 1 is allocated to Bissy. Final allocation letter. After you are done with all charges, infrastructure charges, legal charges, etc., you will now be given this. It states that you are no longer owing and that you can now claim full ownership of the property. So these are all the necessary titles and documents you should look out for when purchasing a property. Here at Impact Hub, we ensure all of these requirements are met to avoid issues with the property in the future. So that brings us to the end of this video, but before I go, I would like to give you some bonus frequently asked question. 1. How long does it usually take on an average for a land to be fully excised? Well, excision is given by the governor of the state and there is no specific time for issuance of excision. Sometimes excision can be delayed due to political reasons. Once a CofO has been issued on a particular land, it takes 9 to 9 years before it can expire, after which it can be renewed. You cannot process a CofO on a land that already has an existing CofO. CofO is CofO everywhere and it can be said to be global, which means the CofO covers a very large expanse of land. 2. Does this mean that a land has to at least be excised before it can be sold or transferred to someone else? Well, you become rightful owner of the land once the government releases it to you via excision. 3. Is excision as good as obtaining CofO? Is a person having excision still mandated to obtain CofO? Well, the thing is, excision does not expire while CofO expires after 9 to 9 years. The only advantage CofO has over excision is that it can be used as collateral for getting loan in the bank. Though government recognizes ancestral land ownership as excision, it is the right of the indigenous owners. So, that brings us to the end of this session. To get more insights like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Impact Hub Properties. Also follow our Instagram handle at impacthubproperties01. Visit our website for available properties and investments at www.impacthubproperties.com. Thanks, and bye for now.